Hey guys, I want to take a second and thank Comfort Pro. Since 2001, Comfort Pro has been helping customers stay comfortable where they live, work, and play. They have 24/7 emergency service and a 100% customer satisfaction guarantee. If you need help with your heating and air conditioning or indoor air quality, call Comfort Pro at 484-917-1803. Mention the show and receive a free humidifier with the installation of a complete system. You're good?
Yeah.
Here we go.
From real estate to real life and everything in between, the Brad Weisman Show. And now, your host, Brad Weisman.
All right. We are back. Yes, we are. We're back Thursday, 7 p.m. every week. Don't forget. We got a really good guest here tonight. And I say that every time. I think I say we always have a really good guest, but she's really fantastic. She's got some great stories to tell. It goes from gymnastics to a news anchor to corporate America to now public speaking or doing speaking arrangements all over the United States. I call her the resilience queen because her big thing is about how people can become resilient, about things that go on in your life that maybe are some dark areas, some things that aren't as good, that you can get past those. And there's ways to get past those times in your life. And she's going to walk us through some of that right now. So Nina Sossaman-Pogue, she is hopefully here with us.
You got it, Brad.
unless she ran
in early there.
So how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Very welcome. You know, I can tell you were an anchor at one point because you have that, like you're going to tell the news to me at some point. You know what I mean? I feel like you're going to say something, hey, this tree started on fire. I don't know.
You're never more than an hour away from the latest news on your 24-hour news source. Yeah, I can go there if you want me to, but
that's pretty funny. That is funny. But no, we'll get into that. But no, you've really gone through some different times in your life. And which is obviously why resilience is what kind of keeps coming up as something that you are able to share, something that you're able to help people with. Did that happen overnight or no? I mean, you went. Let's go back a little bit. You started as an almost Olympics. You were almost in the Olympics, right? You were on the U.S. gymnastics team, which is a huge deal at 14.
Yeah. So I say it's my chapters in the story of my life.
Yeah.
The story that keeps unfolding. And I like being a queen, by the way, resilience queen. I'm going to take that.
You're more than welcome to.
I was thinking more like guru or something, but queen's nice.
Yeah, it sounds good.
It's good. Yeah. So I was a gymnast. I was a Navy brat growing up and found gymnastics. It was kind of the youngest of four kids, like put Nina somewhere. She has a lot of energy.
Right.
And so gymnastics was my thing. And then I moved away from home when I was 13 and I moved into an Olympic training center. And
now let's just go. You didn't get kicked out of the house is what.
No.
The first thing I thought,
opportunity
when I saw that on your bio, I'm like, oh my God, she got kicked out of her house at 13. That's terrible. She must have been really bad. No, but I get it. You actually were dedicated to your talent.
Right. I had an opportunity to move into an Olympic training center at 13. You sort of, I was an elite. I made that caliber of gymnastics where they were interested in training you for a coach would take you on. And so I did. I moved from at Florida. We were in Jacksonville at the time. My dad was at the air base there. And I moved to Maryland, Silver Spring, Maryland, right outside of DC was where the training center was at 13. And then I made the U.S. team and I went all over the world, Japan, Hungary, Germany, and just doing my thing. Back in the day with Mary Lou Retton.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And Bart Connor. Yeah, back in the day.
I remember those names.
80s. Yeah, in the 80s. And then I didn't make the team. I always say, like,
how'd that hit?
Mary Lou's maiden name is my maiden name's Rofi and she was Retton. So we were like both R's and we roomed together, but I was not the top. I was kind of in the, like 5th or 6th through 12th, of those athletes. And only a few make the Olympic team. And then I bombed a qualifying meet. And so, after being on the cover of magazines and this big hype and moving away from home, I was so full of shame. I was embarrassed to go walk the halls of my high school. I felt like I was a failure. I'd let down my family and my friends and obviously my coaches. So it was a really difficult time. That was my first big, this is too much. I call them my thises because we all have, and I have my story. You probably have yours too. Nobody gets past, but I was like, this is not part of the plan. This was not how it was supposed to go. So that was one of my first big failures where I had to figure out how to get go forward from there. I felt like my life was ruined at the ripe old age of like 16.
So
Ridiculous.
it's a defining moment, obviously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's something I think we have. I was at a thing years ago. It was, I forget what the name of it was, but it was a thing where it was a class where you figured out the defining moments in your life. You try to kind of figure out why you are who you are, dissect yourself and kind of go down to the core and go, okay, this makes sense of why I do this, whatever.
Yeah.
So that was a major defining moment there for you.
It was. And I had to, figure out who I was going forward. And I regrouped and I did become one of the top recruits for college for gymnastics. And I went to LSU, great gymnastics program, D1 athlete. I had that experience.
Yeah.
But then my freshman year at LSU, I blew out my knee in competition.
Oh.
So then I lost my sport altogether.
Yeah.
And I really was floundering, like, who am I without this sport?
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, Brad, back then it was like my sweatshirt and my bumper sticker, my T-shirt and stuff. Nowadays, it's these kids, Instagram and their TikTok, like they really identify with whether it's their sport or band or, whatever they're into. So to lose that piece in me was really hard. I floundered a lot. I sometimes joke. I ended up getting through the rest of college and graduating in booze and boys. But took me.
I love the honesty.
I didn't always make the best decisions there for a while, but I did. I found journalism. I was very, through a lot of, tough times there. When I lost my when I lost my sport, in order to keep my scholarship, they asked me to work for the university. You had to back then. Okay. So I had to work for the athletic department, and they put me to work in the laundry room.
Oh, wow.
And not like laundry room, like washing cute little leotards.
No. I'm thinking kind of just disgusting.
Yeah. So I worked in the athletic laundry room. So I sometimes say my claim to fame was almost that I could have washed Shaquille O'Neal's jockstrap. That could be my claim to fame. Thank goodness I didn't stay there.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Thank God that's not why you're on the podcast, for Christ's sakes. I mean, imagine, by the way, the lady that washed the jockstraps is on the podcast right now. That's why she's on.
Proud.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's hilarious. So you go and do that. So now so what happens then? I mean, that's amazing. Where all through your childhood, gymnastics, that whole thing, everything that's your life. That was it. Right.
It's what I knew about life. And if you think about it, when you're 19 and you lose your sport, I spent my whole life in the gym.
Yeah.
And if you do the math, it's more than 75% of my life had been spent in a gym.
Wow.
So of course it felt like my whole life was over.
Right. Sure.
It was a very real feeling. My life experience, everything I've experienced up till that point had been mostly that.
Yeah.
Now I can see, fast forward it, and it's part of what I do in my framework when I talk to people about resilience. I can see it fast forward. By the time I was 50 and my kids left for college, then that gymnastics was like 28%.
Yeah, exactly.
And if I live to be 100, I need to drink less wine and take better care of myself. But if I live to be 100.
No, wine's good. I think today it was in the news. It's good. Tomorrow they'll say it's not. You know how that is. Every other day it changes. So what I do is I only listen to the days that I like, which is the wine's good. Yeah.
I'm on Team Brad on that.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's the way to look at it. Yeah, because eggs were bad yesterday, and now they're good today. You know how that is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm all in on wine and chocolate.
Perfect.
As long as I can keep my wine and chocolate.
Absolutely, two together is wonderful.
Anyway, so I if I live to be 100, then gymnastics is only 15%.
Right.
But at the time, it felt like so much, and I really floundered trying to figure out who I was without it. And thank goodness I had some people in my life who pointed me in a different direction, and I found journalism, and I loved being in a newsroom. Once again, very competitive, fast moving. You have to think fast, move fast. Yeah. It's different every day.
You're on your feet. You're thinking on your feet too. You're like, what I mean? News, anything with news, I always think is, obviously there's a teleprompter, but it's constantly changing. Everything's changing.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a teleprompter once you become a news anchor, but when you're out in the field,
that's all you.
There's not. Yeah. Yeah. So I loved it. So I did that for a while. And then that's how I found my way to Charleston. That's where I am now, Charleston, South Carolina.
Cool.
And speaking of real estate, we're real proud of our dirt around here, the real estate here. It's pretty pricey.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, so I found my way into journalism and I loved it. And then I became a news anchor and had real success there. I did have a period through that, though, in my 30s where they went younger and blonder. And I got laid off in a bunch of layoffs. So
is that really? So that's something that happened. Like they went towards a different look for the news. That's
I won
amazing.
Charleston's favorite news anchor 7 years in a row. And you'll like this. I won it on a Thursday. And then on Friday, and it comes out in the paper, picture of me and stuff.
Yeah.
And then on Friday, I'm in the newsroom doing my thing, and we're getting ready to go down. The weather guy and I are going to go cut a news brief at 3:00. Like, hey, like you see on the news coming up later. This happened. And so we were walking down to cut that, and the GM, the general manager, comes, like one of his people comes around the corner and says, "Hey, Nina, the GM wants to see you."
Oh no!
And I think they're gonna I just won this award. I think I'm gonna get like a bonus,
right, or promotion or something.
Or thank you or something. No. They pulled me in, and he pulled me in there, and the young woman from HR came and sat down across from me, and they said, "Per your contract, we are releasing you without cause."
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, yeah. So
wow.
So that was another big diss. Like, this was not part of the plan. But, years later, when I got into tech and I was part of, difficult financial decisions and force ranking people.
But that's wild. How do you go from the anchor to tech? Like, were you always into tech? Is that something that you thought, this is what I want to do eventually? Or is it just, this is just something that happened?
No. So I love doing news, and I think I would have stayed there like for even longer, but right. I had some things going on in my life, and I was looking like, what else is out there?
Yeah.
And I did like a lot of people do. I kind of said, what am I good at outside of like reading a teleprompter and having nice hair? There's got to be more to me than that. So I had to figure out what that looked like. And so I encourage other people to do this when they're in these life transitions and if they're transitioning careers. I met with people that I admired. I met with a guy who was I had coffee with a guy who was in marketing, ran a marketing firm. And I'm like, if you had to hire me, what would you hire me for? And he's like, I would have you do like car commercials. And I was like,
right.
No, I don't want to do that. And then I met with a woman who ran the Center for Women. And I said, if you've been in a lot of boardrooms with me and at a lot of events with me, what would you hire me for? And she had some ideas. And then I had the opportunity to meet with some other folks in the tech space. Yeah. And it was very different. So I had a buddy who had a startup, and Google had just very much timing and luck. There's some luck involved in it. Of course. Google had just bought YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, video is going to be big online someday. Remember, this is 2007. This is 2007. Video is going to be a big deal. I got to figure out how to make videos, how big that file is, how to put them online, all those things. I need somebody. And he and I had sat on some charity boards and things. Yeah. And so he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And I left TV and went to tech to stand up a media studio and start on the ground floor of this new thing. Like, YouTube was it was all real new back then.
Yeah.
And it was like, what are we going to do with video online? And look where it's come now. It's so neat
crazy,
to see,
isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah. So he hired me to do that. And then I being both a gymnast who can fall down and get back up, and being a journalist who can learn fast, I learned fast. Yeah. And I moved into different areas of the company.
Good for you. And now, obviously, that's past, and now you've moved on to. Did you just retire from there, or how'd that?
Yeah, I left there. I'd done this about 12 years, and I was the vice president of marketing and communications when we took the company public. Oh, wow. So I got to do the IPO roadshow. Wow, that's cool. Goldman Sachs was lead left. I got to get on the little jet and fly up to Teterboro Airport, and get out of the fancy little Teterboro and be all that, And it was a really cool time to be a part of it. And so we had a very successful IPO. Forbes magazine had it as one of the top 10 tech IPOs of the year. And so that was a financial opportunity for me.
Yeah, I would think so. Hopefully you were vested.
I was very much so. I had a lot of options.
Yeah, good for you.
So it gave me the opportunity to let my kids go to any college they wanted, to pay off some debt, those kind of things. I'm not a big house, fancy car kind of person, but there was stuff that it felt so good to have that worry off.
Sure, absolutely.
And so after that happened, then I started looking at life a little differently and said, okay, now without having to be the breadwinner and having to do those things, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? What do I want to give back? And that's where the first book came from. And that's where the speaking came from. What was
the book? Is that This Is Not the End?
Yeah. No? So the first book is This Is Not the End, Strategies to Get You Through the Worst Chapters of Your Life.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where resilience comes in.
It is. And it took me a while, like you said, to get to that word. But when I started doing some research, I became this go-to person for people when they were going through a tough time, because people, my stories were also public.
Yeah.
People saw me.
Well, let's dig into that a little bit. The fact that the reason you have, let's just say, credibility on knowing what it's like to be resilient. You told us a little story. And I think actually we should go there, because it's going to make it that people that are listening go, wow, she had a bad thing happen, and look where she is. She's doing podcasts. She's doing speaking arrangements all over the United States or all over the world. And she got through something that was really tough. So do you mind telling that story that you told us before we started recording?
Sure. And I always ask beforehand, because I'm not here to trauma dump, and I don't want to, it's triggery for some of your listeners. So I'll tell you a kind of watered down version of it. But yeah, so think about like the resilience piece. So I didn't make the Olympic team, and then I blew out my knee in college, and then I'd gotten fired. I'd gone through a divorce, all these things that already happened in my life. And I was a very popular news anchor at the time. And I went to pick my kids up. I took a day off of work to go pick my kids up from the school bus. And so I, went on a beautiful sunny day, and it was a crowded bus stop, and the bus comes and all of our kids go piling off, and I'm there with my best friends, and she has this new like 11-month-old baby that's crawling around. We're playing with the baby. And then the bus comes, and all of these moms and siblings and spouses, and we're all just having a gorgeous Charleston October day. And then in the commotion of all that, when it's time to go, I, throw my kids in the car. Hey, it's time to get going. I had driven over because we were going to run errands. It was special for me to be home. And in all of that commotion, no one had noticed that my friend's sweet baby had crawled under my car. And I backed up. And he was badly injured. He lived. He is in college now.
Which is incredible.
He was very badly injured, lots of head injuries. And he, it was days, weeks, months before we knew he was going to be okay.
Yeah.
And in that time, because, I'm such a public person, there were news trucks on my front yard. There were prayer vigils all over town. It became very much a part of who I was. And I didn't want to be this person.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the world-class athlete and everybody's favorite news anchor.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be the lady who had injured her friend's baby. And so I had a really hard time figuring out how to go forward after that. And I went into a really dark place. And thank goodness I had some good people around me, because I really thought I couldn't imagine. I kept replaying everything that I should have done differently or could have done, or maybe that, shouldn't have taken the day off work. And then I kept looking at the future, and I just couldn't see anything happy. And I couldn't ever see myself being happy. I'm like, the world's just better if I wasn't here. I can't do this. Yeah. So I went through a really tough time. And that's where
what got you out of that? What got you out of that? Like what was like the one thing that you can just think of, or maybe there's many things, but your family, obviously, maybe friends, and talking to people. I mean, what got you out?
Yeah, family and friends. Obviously, the people is a big part of my framework that I talk about. I had to get several things, and that's where my framework comes from, because I can see how I got through that. Okay. Yeah, good. And then I can look back at how I got through the gymnastics and the getting fired, and it's the same. And then I did research on the commonalities when people go through failures or through difficult times, and it's these same four things. But what got me really through that then was, one, I had a good therapist. I'm big into people, and I'm very pro therapy. But what he did for me was say, hey, it's not always going to be like this. Like, the news cycle is going to move on. 5 years from now, it's going to feel different than it does now. He got me out of my own headspace in the moment and said, the news is going to go on to something else. The story's going to move on, and you've got to be here for it. Your kids are little. They're going to need you. Like, he got me thinking ahead, which was a big part of it. That's the timeline piece that I talk about. Yeah. Just like with gymnastics, like I thought it was my whole world back then. It's not my whole world.
Yeah, because you're looking back.
Right.
A lot of times we look back and so, yes, that was a large part of your life. But when you look forward, there's creativity. You can create what's going forward. It's not, it hasn't happened.
I call it all the blank space ahead on that timeline.
Absolutely. Well, you had a good therapist.
Piece of paper, I had a very good therapist. If you draw a line on a piece of paper, I have people do this and put 10 little dots, like 10, how old you are, 10, 20, 30, 40, to live to be 100. Yeah. And then I say, okay, put a dot on where you are right now. And then there's all that blank space ahead. Yeah. And I even do that. So that's the one thing that I did. And then it's called this framework. So that's the T, is this timeline thinking, this perspective, play it forward. And then the second part is humans. I did have some good people in my life.
Yeah.
Had a good therapist. My husband really protected me from a lot of things. My ex-husband at the time took the kids. So
Wow.
it took a village. So it took a lot of us to, to help handle through that. And I always say you have to edit your people. So if you go through something difficult, who's helping, who's hurting? And sometimes some people who love you the most are not helping, and you have to kind of get them out of the way during difficult times.
Yeah.
So that was that piece. And then the other is this isolate piece, like not what happened before and not what may happen in the future, but what can you actually do? And I really had some good help with, hey, let's go back on the air. Let's define what, I held hands with this mom. We walked down the hall of the hospital.
Gosh.
We said we were going to get through it together. We, took advantage of the platform that we had, and we used really positive language. The doctors were, amazing, and it was miraculous. And we were all, praying for him and that kind of stuff. So the language we used was really key. So that was the last piece of it. So this whole timeline, humans, isolate it. What can you actually take action on? And then let's edit the language in your head. I wasn't the villain. I was, just a person who was involved in this. It was an accident. Getting to that word was really hard for me to get to.
Oh, interesting. Getting to the word accident.
Yeah. Accidents should have someone who's like, it was just hard.
And these are also stories you normally hear about somebody else.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And
and so that's why when it's happening to you, you're like, okay, this should be happening to somebody else, not me.
I should be reporting this on the news. I say I went from reporting the headlines to being the headlines.
Oh, yes.
And, I'd done these stories before.
Yeah.
And then once we did some homework on it and looked at it, it was like, this actually happens more often than you think. And most times they don't survive. So I guess we were.
Yeah, you're lucky. I've
unfortunate.
Around here, we've had situations where it's the parent that did it and they didn't make it.
Right.
Yeah, so but luckily he's in college or she's in college and obviously, do you still stay in touch?
We've been in touch. One of the reasons I went back on the air for a year or so, and then I said, I need to be less public. I need to kind of do my own thing, step away.
Yeah.
So I stepped away, and but I obviously from a distance, I'm always cheering for him and seeing what he's doing. And his parents are still here in town, and yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's good. And that's the reason, or that's many of the reasons that you have that you've come through a lot of different things. And so you are good at training people on how to get past these certain times in their life.
And I didn't know that I would end up here, but it wasn't something that I planned for. Like most of us aren't where we planned when we were little children. Like when you were a little boy, did you plan on being in real estate and doing podcasts?
No, not at all. No. I was going to be a rock and roll star. That didn't happen.
Be a vet and an Olympian. Yeah, that was it. So we how we react to the world, like the world changes around us, and how we react to that is where we end up. And so I didn't think I would end up here, but I got to that point where I became, because people knew the things I'd gone through, I became this go-to person. And one time I had a buddy of mine, I heard a knock at the door. I go open the door, and a neighbor standing there with 2 beers in his hands, with tears running down his face. And I was like, "Are you okay?" And he said, "I just lost my job. I can't go home. I don't know how to tell my wife. I don't know what to do."
Wow.
And I was like, "I got you." We came through, walked through the house, and sat on the end of the dock. And I said, "Okay, let's work through these things." And I knew I was helping. And that was just one instance. I had other ones that had happened too. I knew I was helping people. I knew the things I had learned and experienced were helping, and the books I'd read, and the cognitive behavior therapy things I'd gone through, and the PTSD workbooks I'd read. I knew that I was able to help other people, but I didn't have it organized and put together in a way that I could help more than one person at a time.
Yeah.
So that's why I left corporate, because I said, something, what if something happens to me? I'm not here to share this with my own children.
Yeah.
Because I have 3 adult kids now.
Yeah.
Or with people who I love, or just if I have this, how do I put it together and put it out in the world? So that's where the book came from. And it's my mashup of life experience and stoicism and cognitive behavior therapy and a little neuroscience thrown in.
It's awesome. It's really cool. And the experiences are incredible. So let's go down through here before we would wrap it up. We got some time here yet. The reverse resume I thought was interesting. I've never heard of anybody say that before. I always like to pick out things that I've never heard before. What is a reverse resume? Like that didn't make sense to me. So what is that?
Excellent. I love it that you picked up on that. So I coined that phrase a couple years ago, and we all have a reverse resume. And I say, if you take a piece of paper and again, draw that line across it, and above the line is all of your accolades, all the stuff you would see on LinkedIn, all the stuff you would put on your resume goes above the line.
Okay.
Above the line on the ages when it happened to you. You graduated, or you got an accreditation, or you won an award, or you had a baby, or you took it. All the good stuff goes across the line, the stuff that you would be proud of.
Yeah.
And then below the line, I encourage people to go and say, now let's look at all the things you've gotten through. You've been fired or divorced, or you raised a child with a disability, or you were bullied in high school, or nobody gets a pass. Everybody's been through some stuff.
Yeah.
So you put that down at the bottom, and then you can it's kind of neat. You can connect the dots, and it does like this up and down of life. It looks a little like an echocardiogram.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like somebody's heartbeat.
Yeah, you don't want to be flatlined.
No, that's not good. That'd
be bad. That'd be a boring life. This is life. It has these highs and lows. And this reverse resume is all the stuff below the line. And I will argue that that's what makes you who you are. Not the wins.
Absolutely. I love
the
that.
Stuff down below, your reverse resume. And I have executives do this when I do executive offsites. And I'm like, you better hire some people who have some stuff down below the line. I don't always say stuff, but you need that down below the line, because when stuff hits the fan, you're going to need these people. You don't want people who haven't been through some things. But that reverse resume is key.
Yeah. I love that. Is nothing like what I thought it was going to be. That is awesome. I love that. And you know, it's fun. I never heard anybody say that before. That's why you're here, because this is great. You have down here another new thing that we'll talk about that you brought up was FOMO culture. You said you talk about we're constantly connected, and there's a thing called FOMO culture that you say is you are hurting. Are we hurting ourselves? How are we doing with that? You know what? Tell me about the FOMO culture. Because I know I get FOMO. I mean, everybody does.
You know, people talk about FOMO, and we all have it. You know, before there was anything online, we just saw the neighbor come home with a new car, or we saw, you know, somebody have an outfit that we like, or somebody that was in better shape than us.
Do you think it's actually the new jealous?
It's jealous. It's a little different because it's feeding. We're feeding this culture.
Gotcha.
But there's obviously some jealousy there. It's this fear of missing out, or fear of missing out on a different life.
Yes.
You know, it's this fear of missing out on, wait, why didn't I, marry that guy, or do that thing, or take that career?
Because nobody sees the reverse resume.
And nobody,
think about it. Nobody sees the downs on Facebook and on Instagram. Right. Everybody sees the ups,
100%.
On life. They don't see the downs. They don't see that somebody, was in an accident, or somebody was this, or something. You don't put that stuff on there. You put up stuff that makes you look great, so it's interesting. So that's what you're saying is happening.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, if you're looking to buy or sell a house in Berks County or beyond, let me know. This is Brad Weisman from the Brad Weisman Show. You probably know I'm also a realtor, but I wanted to remind you, if you have any questions or you need anything, please give me a call, 484-256-5836. Thanks.
So it's this FOMO. It's this fear of missing out, not just on the party or the thing, but on a different life, on something else that could have been. And here's my favorite example of it. There's two. There's one. Okay, when's the last, like you go on a vacation and you fly somewhere and you do this great vacation. You saved up for it. First, you made a goal that you wanted to do it. You saved the money. You got excited about it. You packed. You went, and say it's some tropical. You did the snorkeling. You got the tan. You drank the pina colada. Like you had this great vacation.
Right.
And then you get on the plane on the way home. And you're like still glowing in it and still sunburned. And you're on your plane on the way home. And then a little thing comes up bloop, in your app and on your phone that says, thank you for visiting, give us our rating. And you do your little summary. Yeah. And then as soon as you hit submit, a little something else comes up and goes, thank you. And here are 5 trips that people like you are taking.
Right.
Don't miss out on this. Right. Go ahead and, if you like this, here are 5 trips.
You're going to like this too. Yes.
And if you don't sign up now, you're going to miss out on that. Yep. So it's this, we never get to just be happy. It's like, oh, shoot, I'm already missing out on the next thing.
Yeah, it's so true. And that is the way we are. We always say about being in the present moment. I mean, that's the problem. Is sometimes we don't give ourselves to just be in it and actually enjoy it and go, okay, this was great. We're looking to the next trip or the next thing to do. It's so true. So true. So that is an issue.
The other piece, what is that?
That's an issue for us. I mean, for people, it's not good.
It's a problem. We all do it. I do it. I look at other speakers and I'm like, they were on 6 stages and they were like, they get a bigger stage. They get whatever.
Right.
It's so silly. I'm doing my thing. I am not them. I've lived my own life and gotten to here.
That's right.
And I started a keynote the other day and I was like, they did my intro, world-class athlete, like the whole thing, Emmy award-winning news anchor. And I walked out and went, well, actually, I'm not successful. Today, I'm on a smaller stage than so-and-so, and I'm not making as much as so, like, when do we get to be successful? Yeah. But the other example of that we all do, that also has to do with our telephones. I do this whole thing with this book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And it's all about behavior science and how we cause our own anxiety and stress because, animals, once they're in immediate danger, all the stress response, that cortisol, the norepinephrine, like all that, the adrenaline is there. But then as soon as the stress response is gone, it's gone. And they go back. And we are constantly going to what ifs. And we even imagine things. We imagine the lion's chasing us even when it's not,
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I talk about a zebra running across and the lion chasing it. But then I have the zebra, pop into some tall grass to reset. And I'll say, and then our zebra, who just was such a good zebra and in like the most amazing, beautifully striped, just the right hooves, right size heart to be to be able to outrun a lion. Yeah. Our zebra ducks in and as it resets, our zebra pulls out his phone to see what's the rest of the animal kingdom doing. Oh. And he sees flamingo on the beach. And he's like, look at flamingo on the beach. I wish I was flamingo. Yeah. I want to wear pink. I'm sick of these stripes. I want to eat shrimp. Like, he just outran a lion. Yeah. He's so good at doing what he does. But in a moment, we can look at somebody else and go, I wish I was doing what they were doing. Yeah. Like flamingo would have been eaten by the lion. Yeah. Yeah. So we all have to we have to get better at being really proud of what we're good at.
Yeah, sure.
And living in that space and quit looking at each other, wishing that we were a different animal. Because we've all, got our own makeup and our own.
Absolutely. And you're right. We do that, as I think a lot of people do that. They look at the other person on social media and go, "Oh my gosh, look what they have," not realizing what you have and you should have gratitude for what you have. Obviously.
I do. And I'll be honest, there are some speakers out there who I really admire and they're just crushing it and they're doing these big stages and this great stuff. And I'll think, man, I wish I could do that. And then I'll remind myself, they have never even had any kids yet. Like they're 30 something years old. I have 3 adult children and these careers I've already had, but I'm wishing I was this 30 something year old who has this big stage. So,
but I don't think the age should hold you back. I mean, how long have you been doing the speaking, the public speaking?
Oh, I'm just using that as an example. I'm doing fine.
Yeah, you're doing great.
But so I'm coming up, of course, because I speak on resilience. I launched this speaking in 2020.
Oh my gosh. There you go. 2020. Yeah, that wasn't a good time. Not a good time. My gosh.
I learned very quickly about the speaking business because I booked a bunch of gigs. Oh. And, when you book, you get half up front and then they pay you the other half when you deliver. Okay. That's how my contracts were set up. Right. So I had a bunch booked for the year and then everything shut down in 2020.
And you had to give it back.
You did, and I'd already spent it.
Oh, my gosh. That's not good.
I had no idea. So I'm like,
That's amazing.
I'm so screwed.
Unbelievable.
Anyway,
well, thanks.
So you learn.
There's one thing I wanted to talk about, real quick, and it was a testimonial that I saw that I thought was really, really cool. And it was basically somebody put a testimonial on your page, and it said, "She grabs you by the brain, pulls you in, and holds you there." I thought that was such a great testimonial. I'm sure you've read that one, about it. I think it's on your website, but what a great testimonial. It was really cool.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, this, Tom wrote that. I can't remember his last name.
Tom Satterley or something, or Satterley or something like that.
Hey, they're in real estate too. So that's
okay, cool. There we go.
So I spoke at their conference down in Savannah, I think it was. Actually, I've spoken at their conference twice. Yeah. His team really liked me and brought me back to speak at their next larger conference. But some people, cool. I don't do just my story from the stage. I really get them thinking about their own life and their own things that they've gone through, and I like the opportunity to make people feel, obviously, laugh, cry, all those things. I do a lot of humor because I think I'm funny. Maybe not.
No,
but,
you are. Yeah.
But I love the opportunity to really get people think about things in different ways, and I think with that one we did a lot around resilience, on the definition of it. It's not persistence and grit, how it's so different from persistence and grit. People get it mixed up. And then we did a lot around goal setting, because every time you set a goal, you are asking yourself to make a change, to get out of your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And so why our bodies and our brains don't like change, where that comes from. So anyway, thank you for bringing that up. Tom was, Tom, that was a really, really good testimonial. And I am proud of the fact that I can get people thinking. I think I did say, I responded to it somewhere, or maybe I'm online back when he did it and said, hey, I did give his brain back. I promise.
That's good. That's good. He probably needs it. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming. How do people get in touch with you? I mean, what's the best way? Maybe just rattle off your socials or whatever, so they can find you.
Great. On Instagram, I'm Nina Speaks, and it's Nina _EAK, because there's other people named Nina who speak, but Nina Speaks. You can find me on Facebook on Nina Sossaman Pogue, on LinkedIn, Nina Sossaman Pogue. And I just launched a workshop, the Now What workshop, for anybody who's going through a tough time. And the whole concept around that is, it's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay that way.
Oh, so I like that. That's very good.
Help you figure out a way forward. So, but yeah, you can find me anywhere in social. I have TikTok. I'm working on it. My team is younger than me, and they're pushing me to do some fun things. So
I think the other ones are more important anyway.
Anyway, but yeah, find me on Instagram. I do daily inspiration or motivation on Instagram. I think motivation is a lot like a shower. You can't just do it once. You keep going back. You need it often.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much for being on here today. I really, really appreciate it.
This has been great, Brad. I appreciate it. I feel like I rambled a little bit. But
nah, you're good. You're good.
It was
great conversation. Great conversation. Thanks so much. All right. There you go. Nina Sossaman Pogue, Resilience Queen is what I'm going to call her. And I think she's going to use that, which is actually cool. But no, you want to check her out. You can just look up her name. Her name is spelled a little different. But if you go to see us on Facebook or Instagram, whatever, we're going to have all of her information there, so you don't have to be searching for her or anything like that. All right. Thanks for joining us again every Thursday at 7 p.m. All right. We'll see you next week. Are your kitchen and bathroom way overdue for a remodel? Well, I got the guy for you. Call John Sellers at First Response Contracting, 484-256-7136. Both residential and commercial services, and he's licensed and insured. Call him at 484-256-7136. First Response Contracting.